逆に猛暑の時に、もうなんか35度以上とかの時に、そのファンを回すと逆に熱風が来るから、かえって逆効果みたいな。
Welcome to the lazyfluency podcast, where we have casual conversations between English and Japanese so that you can learn from and with us along the way. I'm Joey.
And I'm Miami.
And the topic of the day is Japanese summer countermeasures. Before we get into that, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and or drop a review on the platform you're listening on. And if you feel so inclined, support us on Ko-Fi. We appreciate the support. And with that out of the way, Japanese summer countermeasures. Over the last 3 months of my first summer in Japan, I've seen some of the most interesting ways of handling heat. Last week, in the middle section, we talked about something called, I don't remember what I called it in Japanese because I did not know the word. I've learned it's called a handy fan, which we will be talking about, but there are a whole bunch of other methods of heat countermeasures that, I want to talk about because in America, I'd never really seen these. And I don't know if I'm impressed or just confused about a lot of these, but I can say I do vouch for some of them as being, at the very least, mildly pleasant. Aimi, can you describe what I guess the first one is, the handy fan? I don't know if I explained it well enough last time, but this thing is like exploding in popularity to a kind of insane degree. And before I think I just said it was mainly women using it. I kind of take that back. It's literally everybody, like children, men. There's a survey. I'm not sure I put in the notes, but it's like 2 out of every 3 people apparently have reported using this. But yeah, go ahead.
なんかハンディファンって言って、その文字からもわかるかと思うんだけど、ハンディのファンで、持ち運びができる小さい扇風機みたいな感じ。で、これは、なんか充電式もあるし、なんか電池式もあるし、けどなんか今は多分充電式の方が多いのかな。なんかタイプ C で充電できるみたいなのがあって、で、なんか、いろんな会社が、なんか、ファッションみたいに、持てるようにいろんな、色を出したりとか、なんか、手で持つだけじゃなくて、日傘につけられるとか、首にかけてそのまま、使えるやつとかいろいろあって、で、本当に思ったのは最近ね、もう、出かけるとほぼほぼ、もう本当にそれこそ3人に2人とかそれぐらい持ってて、なんかびっくりしてるかな。で、なんかもうすんごい人は、日傘にそのハンディファンつけて、で、もうなんか腕とかなんか本当になんか、長袖ではないけど半袖に日焼け対策のなんかめっちゃ長い手袋をしたり、あとここまでのなんか、なんて言うんだろう、マスクじゃないけど、顔を覆うような布みたいなしてたり、デブサングラスみたいな。それどれだけ、なんだろう、日焼け対策してんだみたいな。そんぐらいの人もいたりとかね、ある。
Okay, I want to hear more about what you just said a second ago. That's not even on the list. What is the list? Well, there was a survey done on this, and I want to talk about handy fans and how I personally think they're very ridiculous. But to get a sense of what kind of things people are using to deal with the heat, there's a survey. This was in 2023, so I swear it'd be even hard. Maybe it was equally popular in last summer, but I wasn't here during last summer, so I wouldn't know. But so there's 2023 information, and it's a survey about what percentage of people use what kind of what's called natsu or atsa taisaku, so a way of countermeasuring for the heat. I'll read some of them, and some of these I don't even know if I'm specifically familiar with. But the most popular one, actually, we'll go down the line. So is not the handy fan. Actually, it's slightly under this. Not the handy fan, but what is it? What is the most popular in the list?
一番が日傘。日傘っていうと、日光を遮るための、傘で、で、多分これって、アメリカでは it's not a thing だよね、多分。
The only time I've seen this, I think, is randomly like in Panama, like old grandmas use it. I think old grandmas in America use this. If I'm thinking of like almost a Victorian fashion sense, I can imagine someone using it's an umbrella, but it's meant just, I honestly think this does do a good job of reducing heat, but my impression is that it's not used to reduce heat. It's used to reduce, your skin, basically tanning. I don't know. Do you think people use this expressly to like stay cool?
なんか、ステイクオーもそうだし、あと本当に女子は日焼けしたくないから、日傘使う人が多いかな。 で、この日傘っていうのも、その普通の傘として使えるものも、あるのね。で、日傘と普通の傘の違いっていうのは、確かね、なんか、日傘は、外側、なんかね、色がね、なんか、日光を反射できるようなやつが、確か内側かなで、外側が、黒はダメか。なんか吸収しちゃうから。なんか色によってさ、吸収するとか反射するとかあるじゃん。だからそういうのも工夫して、どれだけ、その、直射日光を遮れるかを、なんかデザインしてるんだよ。日傘っていうのは。
Yeah, I give the higasa an actual. Like to me, it's kind of goofy, especially if you're using it not to tan, but at the same time, reducing your exposure to the sun does reduce your risk of skin cancer. Plus, it actually having shade does significantly reduce the heat. It's we'll talk about this later about complaints like kind of unrelated outside of this survey ways of reducing heat. We'll talk about that in a second, but although. Yeah, to me, it feels a little goofy. I think it actually does the job successfully. The next popular one on the list is the one we talked about earlier, the handy fan. Did you know this was called a handy fan? Was I just crazy when I was saying the G? Yes, what did I say? Okay, you just did tell me the terminology, apparently. But yeah, the handy fan is extremely prevalent. And so it's 39.9% people reported using the higasa, the sun umbrella, and it's 39.4%. So they're pretty close. I think this one particularly is goofy because it's like you're having like a small. It's like to me having an air conditioner outside, where you're fighting a losing battle, and doing this like spot. You like maybe your front of your face feels slightly cooler, but bringing on batteries seems so like 19. Like I said this in the millisecond last time, but it feels to me like someone in the 1920s would be like, man, I wonder what the future's like, and it'd be like oh gosh, not the Fred Flintstones, but the Jetsons? I don't know if you know what the Jetsons are. It's like an American cartoon about people in the future. I have like I don't know anybody their names. I'm assuming their last names are the Jetsons. But that's what I imagine the handy fans. I think it's popular primarily because of stylistic reasons, which to me is hilarious because I think it looks straight goofy, especially when it has such terrible practicality. But are you more critical on them? Do you actually feel positive or negatively about the?
いや別に私はポジティブでもネガティブじゃない、でもどっちでもないんだけど、まあやりたい人がいればいいんじゃないって感じだけど、なんか私の友達がそのハンディ、ファンを持ってて、で、まあ二人で出かけてた時に、ちょっとこれどうよみたいな感じで、なんかハンディファンを、まあかざしてくれて、まあ涼しいっちゃ涼しいかな。けど、あれ、なんかまあ物にはよるけど、まあ今、一番流行ってるやつは多分、空気を冷却する機能とか多分ついてないやつだと思うね。ただただファンが回ってるやつだけだと思うから、だからなんかね、YouTube で確か見たんだけど、逆に猛暑の時に、もうなんか35度以上とかの時に、ファンを回すと逆に熱風が来るから、かえって逆効果みたいな。なんか医者が言ってたみたいな感じの見て、ああ、まあそうだよねと思って。だから、まあ使うなら、あまり暑すぎない時にやらないと、本当にね、逆に熱中症になっちゃうかもしれないっていうのを、まあ聞いて、おーと思ったの。
That is beyond hilarious. Honestly, I'm not saying I want people to suffer heat strokes, but I'm saying if someone has to suffer a heat stroke, I would find it hilarious to be someone with the handy fans. So that's all I'm saying. And before you get mad at me, the elderly I don't see using handy fans. So I'm not asking for the deaths of elderly people. I'm merely asking for the heat strokes of people in their 20s and 30s like me. So there's no prejudice, there's no ageism going on here. I'm just but that's hilarious. It literally, the time you want the most is the most useless. This is a complete fail. If you were to give this a letter grade, to me it's an F. What do you give this? If the goal is to actually prevent yourself from heat and convenience, you have to. I wonder how long can it even last? Like how long is a handy fan lasting? Like 30 minutes, an hour?
いやー、私も詳しいことはわかんないけど、まあ少なくても1時間とか持つんじゃん。だってちゃんと充電していくわけじゃん。で、今ではさ、まあモバイルバッテリーとかもあるわけだからさ、そっからまた充電してみたいな。わかんない。
The last thing I'd want to use a mobile battery for is charging my handy fan to travel like inside a train for like 15 minutes. So if you don't know, in Japan, basically all the trains are air conditioned. So I just don't know what the situation is where you really want to have some way to deal with the heat because you're going to be outside for a long time. But at the same time, you're not going to be outside for a long time because if you do, you can't use, you're going to run out, not be able to use your handy fan. And if it's too hot, like it's starting to get too hot, you also can't use it. And it's also going to just expedite your heat stroke. So I give this one a fail. It's a complete fail grade. It's a fashion fail. It looks terrible. It does its job terribly.
いや、なんか、私が唯一っていうか、なんか、まあ、これは涼しいんじゃないと思うのが、汗拭きシートってあるじゃん。汗拭きシートっていうのがあるんだけど、なんか、まあ、中には、スースーするような、爽快感を与えるような、汗拭きシートっていうのがあって、だから汗を拭いて、まあ、爽快感を得て、で、その後に、まあ、そのファンを当てると、そのスースーするのが、よりめちゃめちゃスースーするようになるんだよ。だから多分それで、涼しくなる気がする。それをやれば。
Well, we'll talk about the wipes later. The wipes are later down this list. I'm just saying you don't need anything to work with your umbrella. The umbrella does the job by itself. Complete. Excuse me, you're doing the same thing with a handy fan. Okay, moving on to the next one. So this one we're going to ignore. Why? Because it's diligently drinking water. And we've, as I've talked about, Japanese people don't drink water. We talked about last episode. And this is not a water episode this time. I can't promise that future episodes won't be water episode. But this one is not a water episode. And so that's 33.2% of people. Reportedly, like I said, fake news. Now, next one after that is 24.9%. And it is boshi, hats. And I think of like in my head Japanese shufu doing this. The most like the sun, it's like the white sun hat.
こういうやつね。結構なんか横に広がったような、なんて言うんだろう、麦わら帽子ではないけど、ちょっとこういうで周りがヒラヒラしたようななんか白いやつとかさ、ね、まあ、被ってる人もいるし、で、よくなんか面白いのがおじさんっていうのは、通年、もう夏に限らず一年中帽子かぶってるっていうのがあって、キャップね。それはなんでかっていうと、ハゲを隠したいからっていう。なんかそれテレビで見たことあるんだよね。なんで中年のおじさんは帽子かぶってんですかみたいな。なんかインタビュー取って、ハゲを隠したいからみたいな。だからまあ、中年のおじさんはちゃんと暑さ対策ができてる感じで。
I did see, this isn't on the list, but it's kind of related to the bullshit category of, what are they called? Post office drivers, like delivery drivers. Yesterday I saw a person under their helmet. That was pizza delivery? Okay, yeah. Whatever delivery. Under their helmet, they had a towel. I'm assuming it was a wet towel, but they basically put it under the helmet and it looked hilarious. It looked like they had these giant dog ears because it was moving and flapping in the flapping in the wind as they were going by. And at first I was like, what in the world is going on? And then that does seem like a good move. The next one, this is the one you mentioned before. What is it?
汗拭きシート、ボディシート。で、これは、まあそのスーツさせる効果もあるし、で、もう一つが、まあ匂いを取るっていう。まあ汗ってさ、かくとさ、まあ臭いじゃん。アジア人はまあ、比較的臭くないかもしれないけど、まあ臭いのよ。だから、そういった、まあ、臭さと汗と、拭いて、で、いい匂いにするっていう効果もあるから、これは本当にいいと思う。
For those who don't know, this is basically it's like a baby wipe, except the baby wipe's like scented and also has some like alcohol on it. So like it feels like it is, because if you have like wound and other stuff or shaving, I put it like it stings. Yeah, the Gatsby. No, it's okay. And so there are also ones without scenting that are cheaper. I don't know if I think these like effectively do the job of like cooling you down. It's very temporary, but I think they at the very least perfume you a little bit so that you don't smell as bad. But my thing is, if you're not going to go inside right afterwards using one of these, there's not really a point. It's something you use like when you're trying to re-enter a space so you don't aren't super sweaty and terrible. But I don't think like this isn't something that actually would keep me cold, cool passively while I'm around, unless you're using a sheet every 2 seconds, which would be hilarious. And then what do we have? Go ahead.
うちはでも最近使ってる人あんまりいないかもね。
Yeah, these are the like more open fans that you don't have to like manually close up. These are more like used for like concerts and stuff like that. I don't think do we have an example? Oh yeah, hold up. We do. I don't think we have it on us at the moment. Yeah, I don't think I've maybe I'm trying to think. I think I've seen one person use it, but I'm not sure if like you sometimes get these handed out by people doing flyers. They're kind of fans that you don't have to open up like almost like spheres.
結構場所取るよね、そうすると。持ってったのに。
I mean, I don't think people are carrying around handy fans and umbrellas. I don't think that's a valid argument against the uchiwa. And the next one, oh, sorry, that was, by the way, just so you know, the last two, 24.4% of people reported using the asafuki shito, and then 15.5% report using the uchiwa. After that, let me see, are these interesting? There's one of these. So like one of them is like, okay, it's like clothes that are like more lightweight, 15.5%. The next one is funny. It reminds me of this is the Ozempic shirts. 10.4% is
Ozempic shirt 本当この人はオゼンピックシュートはできないけどさ、まあ露出の多い衣類っていうことで、なんかまあ結構女の人だね。女の人がタンクトップ着たりとか、まあ服着てんのっていう人もいるし、男の人はなんだろう、何着るんだろう。まあ、ショーツと、あと、なんだ、タンクトップ
Are you thinking like America? I don't see Japanese people in shorts and tank tops. Getting Japanese people in shorts seems like an impossible unless it's PE. They're always in jeans. Like, to me, it's so funny. This is something we'll talk more about, but I will mention it quickly here is like, there are some very simple ways to beat the heat, but because of cultural or fashion reasons, they're just not chosen. I feel like one of them is not wearing long pants and like even long like tank tops people don't wear either, t-shirts maybe. Yeah, and so yeah, the closest thing I'd say to like these I would just be revealing. Oh, go ahead.
なんか結構なんだろう、日本のファッションって結構バギーなのが好まれる感じがすると思う。私もファッション全然詳しくない。まあ見ての通りファッションどうでもいいと思ってる人だから。でもなんかまあ見てる感じだと、まあ洋服屋とかね、なんか広告とかあるじゃん。で、そういうので、まあ女の人はどうかわかんないけど、男の人結構、コリアンスタイルとか、まあジャパニーズスタイルだと、バギーな感じの洋服が多いかな。多分、まあ体型隠せるというか、結構日本の人ってさ、まあ、なんだろうね。まあ、比較的、細い人が多いじゃん。で、なんか、まあ、まあ、なんて言うんだろう。男の人のステレオタイプ、として、まあ考えられちゃってるのは、まあ、ちょっと細くて筋肉ない人は、なんかダメだみたいな、そういう、まあ固定概念があるじゃん。だからそういうのを多分隠すっていうためにも、そのバギーな、まあ洋服を着ることで、まあ、まあ隠してるのかなとは思ったけど、どうよなんかファッション的に。
It's funny because I thought it was for the reverse reason. I thought you wore those really baggy clothes to make yourself look skinnier because you can't see any of your body.
いやー、でも結構、なんかね、日本の男の人ってマジで足が細いの。なんか女子より足細いんじゃないかみたいな。で、まあ美脚なんだけどね。で、だからだと思ったんだけど、違うかな。
I'll tell people I don't think Japanese women love my like large calves and my large thighs. Well, my point is, I thought the bag thing was being like, look, I'm basically bones. I don't even have any fat or muscle. There's nothing under here. You want to be the skeleton. It's like what's it called? You have the head, and there's like, you're like, oh man, I hope he's just a skeleton. It's like, dang it, he has skin. I feel like, anyways, what do we have after? Oh. This one, I actually am not entirely sure what this is referring to in terms of dealing with the heat. We have candy and tablets.
That was a big akubi.
Oh yeah, we got a comment which is basically just akubi shiten janeyo. Which
してんだよか。
what?
あくびしてんだよって言われちゃったんだけど。
Oh, okay, yeah.
なんかね、わかんないけどね、なんか止められないんだよね、私。多分、なんか、体が反応してんの、このポッドキャスト、レコードに。いいことか悪いことかは挟っておき、なんか多分ナルコレシピがなんかもしれないかわかんないけど。まあいいや。で、まあ、飴やタブレットっていうのが、まあ次に来て、あれだよね、なんか夏だとよく、汗でさ、まあ、塩分とミネラルが逃げちゃうから、それを、まあ、補給するっていうことで、そういうね、成分が入った飴とかね、タブレットってわかるかな？まあ、ラムネみたいなやつとかね、舐めると、美味しいし、ちゃんと、まあ、熱中症対策になりますよっていう。
Oh wait, is this counting likeガリガリ？ガリガリは入んない。 Okay, I'm not entirely sure, and I realized I skipped one. So that was 6.7%. One before this was one of the other ones that I think is a little goofy, but I kind of understand because it's like doing a lot of steps to make a towel, in my opinion, which is the neck coolers. They're like a cylindrical half cylinder that you put around your neck. Have you tried using one of these? I saw yesterday a Japanese father put it on their kid, and the kid just rejected it, and the father was frustrated, and then instead like manually used a sensor to cool off his kid, and I was like, so all I've seen so far. I've seen other people use it. I don't know. This isn't as popular as the other options.
私もね、一回ね、確か小学生か中学生くらいの時に、なんか、もらったんかなんかで使ったことあるんだよね。なんかそういう、なんだろう、凍るやつじゃないんだけど、なんか水に濡らして涼しいですよみたいなやつだったんだけど、意外とまあまあ涼しかった気がする。で、首って確かさ、よく言うのがなんか熱中症で倒れちゃった人に、まずどこを冷やすかっていうので、確か首なんだよね。で、だから首ってまあ、太い血管とか通ってて、で、頭ってさ、まあ一番ね、脳みそって一番、まあ体の中でね、重要な臓器のうちの一つだからさ、まあ、そういう脳に、影響いかないようにとかね。で、首を冷やすのが、すごく大事って言うんだけど、まあそういった意味で、効果的なんじゃない？
I mean, to me, it's like, wearing. I can theoretically see that if you like wear a hat like if you only wanted, I don't know if one piece of clothing, realistically speaking, but like we're just wearing gosh, not a hat. What do we call them? I can't believe I'm blanking on this. Just cold hat. What are they called? Oh man, it's like the most simple. This isn't the crazy vocab. I don't know what's going on in English, but the simple when it's. Oh, the knitted hats. What are they called? No. In the winter, this is driving me crazy.
Beanie.
Yeah, beanie. Oh God, thank you. I do not know why I was blanking on that, but yeah, when you're wearing a beanie, it can like that by itself can really make you able to deal with the cold. So maybe it's like that, except with your neck. Some of the other ones aren't as interesting, and I'll just 11.9% people said they're not really taking any countermeasures. But I did want to mention, because you mentioned the last time, I had no clue we were talking about before we talk about something else, which is the fans that have the jackets that have built-in fans. They're like on the sides of the jacket. They're like, okay, because I did not understand until I saw it. But imagine a really poofy jacket, and then on the side you put like just a circle, and then it has a fan. On the other side, you put a circle with a fan, and then it looks like it takes the air and literally like puffs up the jacket. And yeah, probably that seems like it might be effective at cooling. It looks insane. I've seen a lot of old people wear it. Do you have any experience with this jacket before? Or are you checking one example?
私はまだ見たことはあるんだけど、着たことはないね。で、まあ多分、冷たい風を送ってんのかな。そう。でもまあすごく、まあ高いやつはあるよね。なんか1万円ぐらいするものあるし。なんか、よく見るのがね、なんか工事現場で働いてる人とか、あとなんか交通のおばさん、なんて言うんだろう、小学生が安全に渡れるように、横断歩道あたりでいる人とかがなんか着てて、こういうのあんだと思って、空調作業服だって。そう。っていうのがあって、まあ、いいんじゃないとは思ったけど、まあちょっとグーフィーっていうか、なんていうの、そこまでするかみたいな感じだよね。
I wonder how long it'll last in terms of battery, and then also the fact you're wearing a jacket in the heat. So it really would have to work well to counterbalance the fact that you're wearing a jacket in the heat, and you probably don't want to be wearing a jacket in the heat in the first place. I feel like I guess going to here, like after going through all the data, I kind of want to talk about some of the more obvious ones that aren't in here, which I think should be. I will say caveat that one that isn't listed on here, which I think is a huge deal in Japan, is just having availability of convenience stores and like vending machines. In my opinion, when I'm trying to reduce the heat, it's basically find a konbini and just go in for a bit. And that's more effective than any strategy. And I feel like I actively do that, what I'm saying, when it's really hot. Whereas that you can basically go in any direction in Japan and you'll guarantee you will stop across a konbini. And then the same thing was like, obviously we're not talking about water, but there are other beverages. in the vending machines, and having that be accessible like every like 200 meters or something is all super clutch. Oh, something you want to say about that?
なんか、私が、個人的にやってる暑さ対策としては、なんかすごくリコメンドできるのが、そのさっきも言ったように、汗拭きシート。で、私、普段なんか黒い洋服着るからさ、黒って光吸収しちゃうのね。だからものすごく暑いんよ。だからといってなんか白い服着るっていうわけでもないんだけど、だからまあ代わりに、まあ日焼け止め塗って、で、もう汗かいたら汗拭きシートで拭いて、あとサングラスかな。すんごい眩しいからサングラスしてって感じかな。まあたまに帽子かぶる。
Then there's the last one, which this one's not something that can be done by an individual, and this is not written on the survey, but I think it is super huge. And this was an observation that Aimi made, and I noticed as well, which is the like places in the Kanto, like Tokyo, Saitama, Chiba regions are actually much hotter than Okinawa we were just in, like maybe 10 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is, 2-3 or something Celsius. On average, like even like right now during the summer, which is not what you'd expect, at least when you think of Okinawa. But the thing is, and obviously Okinawa does have places that are kind of like very car centric, but at least when you go to the more nature area, there's a lot more trees and vegetation, and there's just a lot more natural shade. But in Japan, there's a lack of two things. One, shade, unless you have giant buildings, which can be helpful. But a lot of places there are open buildings. And then one more important thing, this applies to all of Japan. Oh yeah, you like the sea wind. Yes, the sea wind as well, which was nice. But this was a friend that I think a lot of people made this complaint. I made this complaint. I forgot about how inconvenient this was, but we had another German friend. We have a lot of German friends. None of the same one, but one of them mentioned this during the summer when we were biking, and as his number one problem with Japan. He really liked Japan. Number one problem, and it's there are no places to sit and lay down. One of the things you want to do the most when you're dying of heat, you want to get some water, you maybe cover yourself and get in the shade and lay down or sit down. There's no shade and there's no sitting down, which makes it extremely brutal. And so you basically have to rely on private facility, like I said, a convenience store, if you really want to chill down. But yeah, have you ever thought about that? Like I mentioned multiple times my experience of seeing somebody pass out from heat stroke right in front of me walking in Kyoto, and you're in like a lot of, this was in the Imperial Palace like surrounding area. It just gravel everywhere. And so you have the summer heat beating down directly on top of you, sun directly on top of you. You're inside a castle wall, but there's no, everything's to the perimeter, and you can't sit down. There aren't any benches. And so I feel like that's another thing that maybe if there are enough people who get heat stroke, we can start doing some movements of have public benches with shade around them or something like that.
いや本当にベンチなんかさご飯まあコンビニで多分さご飯とかまあ買ったとしてもなんかコンビニ内でまあ席があるところもあるけどでも大体席ないのね。でそういった時にどこで食べるってなったらまあ外にベンチがあったら食べれるじゃんけどベンチすらないからなんかどこで食べるかみたいな感じになるよね。だから本当にベンチはね作ってほしい。なんでベンチがないのかちょっと理由が知りたいよね。
And then finally, this is just a Japanese what are they called, ice, like convenient recommendations, because this is, I don't know if this is like obviously a taisaku necessarily, but it's like stuff that's awesome after it is hot. And we keep mentioning one called gari gari. It's super popular in Japan. It's like this blue bar, or gari gari kun. And that one is great, but the one that's low key that I hadn't heard people talk about, I don't know how many, I'm assuming people know about it, Japanese people know it quite a lot, is the sakure. Sakure is like a brand of these like small cylindrical cup, and a lot, like they have different flavors, but the most popular ones are lemon. They cut a lemon off, they put it on top, and then it's like ice, kind of like a mixture between ice syrup mixture, and it is just fantastic. I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't taste like American slushies or ices or whatever. It's in some sense even tastes healthy. I know it probably isn't like super, but it's not like super unhealthy either way. And it's just very, very banger. So if you go to Japan, I recommend, it's very unassuming and you wouldn't think it's like great, but it is fantastic. There are also like, was it melon flavor and pineapple. Pineapple flavor is amazing. Melon flavor is amazing. There's an anzu, azuki. Yeah, they're like beans flavored. That one's bad. It's not good. So there you go. Do you have any recommendations?
いや、レモンとパイナップルがめっちゃ良かった。
Well, aside from sakura, do you have any other?
そういうことなんかアイスボックスってやつがあって、なんかまあ氷なんだけど、その氷になんか味がついてるやつで、なんか美味しいよ。アイス、なんていうのアイスクリームじゃないけど、涼しくなるし、おすすめです。
Yeah, it's kind of like if you had a giant, like imagine you had a giant ice cube that was like 40%, like you put fruit in it, and then you broke that into small cubes, and then put that in a like cylinder. It's actually pretty good. Had it for the first time, was it yesterday, 2 days ago? But yeah, let us know if this helps you. In the US, a lot of these options aren't available, and I do not recommend you get. Please, no more handy fans. So anything but handy fans. I'd rather everybody use the umbrellas than handy fans. It's goofy. But let us know what are your opinion on your favorite ways to beat the heat. And I will be away from Japan next episode. So I guess I'll be able to confirm whether or not it is hotter currently in Idaho. But yeah, let us know. 戻りました。1週間前のポッドキャストでは沖縄について話したんだけど、それはなんか沖縄そんなに経験してない時に時の感想でも今回は1週間ぐらい沖縄の生活をして沖縄についての感想になるんだけど、まず多分一番気になったのはその海の感想だけど、あゆみ沖縄の海はどんな感じだったかな？
It was fantastic. Like for someone who hasn't been to beaches for a long time, like over 10 years, it was the best beach I've ever been, like in Japan.
私もすごかったと思った。でも同時に最初の海の経験、本当の海、なんか綺麗のなんか田舎の海はパナマの経験で、それもすごく良くて、でも多分沖縄とパナマの違いなのは多分なんか沖縄だと観光客の方が多かったんじゃないか。それなんか家族がたくさんいて、でなんかパナマだと人がいたんだけど、ほぼなんか自分だけ、なんか海となんか3人4人の他の人はいたんだけど、でも沖縄に関しては主婦がたくさんいて、で外国人はある程度いたんだけど、でもなんかもう少し混んでたイメージがあった。でも全体的に海は綺麗だったし、で水はなんか暖かくてめっちゃ気持ちよかった。で初めてのなんか暖かい海の経験だったの、あゆみは。なんか海に入って。
I went to Guam like for 5 times and like Fiji, like when I was a kid. So I did go to warm water, but this was the first time in Japan, and we also did like scuba diving at Blue Cape, which is in the middle part of Okinawa. It was really, really beautiful. We also fed a fish there, and there were a lot of fish in the water. Now we took like a lot of pictures, but the downside was that it was the best season to do scuba diving, so there were many families, and then like we took a tour, so we had to have other people with us for touring, and that was kind of like a little bit annoying to be around with other people.
多分関連してる問題だけど、その一人だけの経験が欲しかったらもちろんその貸し切りもできるんだけど、多分一番なのはその人に出会いたくなかったら沖縄の北部の方に行かないといけない。でもその車がないとそれはなんか4時間以上かかるし、で沖縄人全体的はなんか車を持ってる方だから、なんか北部に行ったとしても人がいるんじゃないかと思ったんだけど、で多分前のエピソードで話したんだけど、その観光客の問題、観光客は 大体、ほとんどの時はすごくいいところに行くんだけど、その観光客のせいでそのいいところはダメになる。で、なんかどうやってそれを解決できるかな。多分、オフシーズンで行った方がいいかな。わかんない。でももちろんその冬の時は行きたくないよね。
I noticed some how do you say like trash was were thrown away on the rock at the beach, and I was so disappointed to see that. Like I couldn't believe that like some people threw their trash away at this beautiful beach, and then it was so sad to see that.
でも他のそういうことなら私も同じ気持ちでなんか、めっちゃ怒ってた私本当にそのゴミを見た時になんでこんななんか海は綺麗すぎてこんな海を見るとなんでなんかゴミを捨てたくなるみたいな。でも同時に他の可能性としてはハワイとごめんハワイじゃなくてハワイと日本のなんかゴミなんか戦争みたいなことなんかニュースで読んだことあるんだけど、そういう話聞いた。そのなんかハワイのゴミは日本に来るかな、日本のゴミはなんかハワイに行ってでなんかわかるそのなんか流れのせいで、海のなんかいろんな変な流れ方があるんだけど、その日本からハワイに行ってでハワイから他の国だったかもしれないけどなんか日本に戻ることになってるからそのゴミは他の国のゴミみたいな可能性もあるからなんかそのなんか一つのところは結構なんかゴミでいっぱいいっぱいでなんか人がピクニックしてたというなんか思わないんだけど、それは多分その大量のハワイや他の国からのゴミだった気がする。でももちろん山の上のゴミは人が捨てたゴミだと思う。で他の気になったことは私が毎回京都やパナマと日本にいた時に毎回じゃないんだけど、今までは6回この経験したことあるんだけど顔は似てないんだけどその後ろからの見た目は沖縄人に似てるということを聞いたことがある。でも、あいみにとっては全然そんなことない。そんなことない。そんなことない。でも本当に実際に沖縄に行って思ったのが、いや私より茶色のなんていう日焼け、私の肌は日焼けしてないんだけど、そういう茶色、なんか私よりの茶色を持つかなしてる人がいたってことについて。
I mean, yeah, like on average, Okinawan people were pretty tan, and also like myself, I'm kind of tan for mainland people, so I could fit in skin color wise there. And what I can say is that Okinawan people are kind of tan, so yeah, just looking at your skin color, you can be considered as an Okinawan person, but if people see you like from the front, it's not, you don't look like Okinawan. But yeah, for example, like we took a marine activity tour, and then how do you say, trainer? There were several trainers there, and then they all were really tan, like really tan. ね、
私と同じぐらいかな。でもその私の中2倍ぐらいのトレーナーの中の人がじゃなかったんだけど、他の人を見てなんかその人はなんかメキシコ人かなんかアフリカ系の人かと思ったんだけど、その顔を見たらそうじゃなかったんだ。でも一番沖縄じゃない特徴は何だろう。私の鼻ってこと？鼻以外、目と鼻、目と鼻以外はどう？眉毛はどう？
Also, for Okinawa, kanso, how do you say kanso?
Impressions.
Yeah. Okinawa is pretty car-centric, so like, since I don't have a driver's license, I couldn't rent a car, so I only could go to the south part and the middle part. The middle part. So we had to use bus to go anywhere. Also, not metro. It's a monorail. But the monorail only goes from the south to the middle, so you can't really reach to the north part. And bus drivers are pretty, I don't know if they're lazy, but like they don't come on time. And then one time we waited for over 30 minutes. It's kind of rare to wait for 30 minutes in Japan, but it was pretty common to wait for a long time in Okinawa. So if you ever go to Okinawa and like take bus or something, you should be prepared for that.
wait long というか日本では待たないその電車電車のなんかその時間通りの1分前に来ちゃう逆にでも沖縄だとその30分なんか10分以内だったらこのバスはなんか早かったねみたいなことになってるんだけど、毎回なんか15分20分30 10分みたいなことが起きてで私が間違ってるんじゃないかと何回思ってたんだけどいやこのバスは来てない他の人は待ってるしなんか私がなんか悪いことしたのかな間違ったのかなと何回思ってたんだけど結局いつもバスのせい、バスのせいというかその交通機関のせいだと思うんだけどなぜなんかというとそのバスは他の車と同じ道路を使わなくちゃいけない。そんなせいで他の車が遅れることになったらバスも遅れるというシステムがあるんだけど、アメリカ人ならそのシステムに慣れてるんだけど私がちょっとだけなんか東京の電車に慣れすぎていてその沖縄ではそのアメリカンビレッジというところがあるんだけどそういう本当にアメリカのなんか料理だけじゃなくてその文化そのバスと車の文化も大変影響されてる気がしたでも全体的に行ってよかったと思う他の病院の経験はどうだったその一言で
Yeah. So I went to see hospitals to Okinawa, and I saw 2 hospitals, and overall, both of them are pretty good compared to hospitals in Kanto area. There were like residents could do more in hospitals in Okinawa. Yeah, that's my impression. And I really want to improve on my skills as a doctor. So Okinawa is it's a pretty good place to do residency.
And we're back with the final section. And if you made to the final section, that means you just send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com with a comment, question, language related and or otherwise. And this week we actually have 2 new commenters and I'm very excited to read them and a Japanese comment as well, which is rare. So shout out to that. First comment is from CK. CK. And here it goes. Okinawa people similarities to Southern Chinese culture. Hi, Joey and Ayami. I'm CK from Hong Kong, but currently living in the US for good. I've been to Okinawa 3 times. I love Okinawa a lot. Joey said that Okinawa people are much more related to Chinese than the Japanese. This reminds me of something I watched/read about before. The similarity of tomb sweeping practice in Hong Kong and Okinawa. In Hong Kong or the southern part of China, people tend to eat on the graveside of their closest ancestor, maybe a big graveside with a few ancestors buried under the grave together during the tomb sweeping day or at their wills. For me or on my mother's side, we usually went to clean the tombs of my mother's ancestors right after the Chinese New Year instead of during the tomb sweeping day, which will have lots of people inside the gravesite. We didn't really sit on the gravesides to eat with my mother's ancestors, but we will place the food such as duck eggs, oranges, and steamed buns on the grave alongside with some incense and candles. After offering those items to ancestors, we would share the food with my ancestors. We would peel off the orange and leave the orange peels on the grave. split the buns to eat, and leave some on the grave. Even though we didn't sit on the grave to eat with the ancestors, there were quite a number of people to place a mat on the grave and enjoy a meal with their ancestors and living family members. Some people would even bring a whole roasted pig to share with their family members. He gave us 2 links as well, to the Okinawan version as well as one with people in Hong Kong talking about it. Thanks. Best regards, CK. Thank you a lot for the link. I looked at this and checked it out. I don't know if you had... Is this similar to anything else you've seen in Japan? If you want to look at it, you can just look at Okinawa. It's called, what was it? Shimi Festival, apparently, if you want to check out what he's talking about.
私、実はっていうか、お墓参りしたことないんだよね。なんでかっていうと、both of my grandparents がさ、まだ、今生きてるし、で、私、台湾ニーズ、地的には台湾ニーズだからさ、墓っていうのがないわけよ。だから、どうやって普通の人がお墓参りにしてるのかよくわかんないんだよね。けどさっきシーミー、なんだっけ、沖縄のお墓のやつ見たけど、なんか、いいよね、亡くなった、ご先祖様と一緒にご飯を食べてるみたいな、ピクニックして、すごく、なんか、心が温かくなるものだねっていう。
I was wondering when I saw the Shimi festival, whether when you say Senzo, are you talking about like your grandparents? Or are you talking about like your entire family line? Like that's something that I found interesting. Something that you like, I'm not sure if it's common. Like the only time I hear people talk about their family line is 1, when you're dealing with some nationalistic thing, 2, when you're dealing with some bloodline thing, which is, related to nationalistic thing, or 3, you're dealing with somebody who's really into genealogy, like my dad. And then he'll mention, like, did you know that you were related to somebody on the Knights of the Round Table or something like that? And it'll go, my dad's been doing, just side note, been doing genealogy for like over like 20 years. And he's like, no, literally, he's like crazy into it. People like reference like his work and stuff. So he's very into that. And so that's the only time I hear people talk about that. Do you have any friends, like your father like mentioned to you like, hey, you're from this line of whatever person people. I'm like, who is this person? This is mad. He just name drops somebody without saying why he's significant. So I'm saying, do you think, is that like a Taiwanese thing or?
いや、なんかさ、よく、だから日本でもさ、例えば将軍、なんとかの将軍の末裔ってわかる？
Descendant.
そうそう。一番下のね、ディセンダントとかだと、なんか、すごいね、みたいな。で、なんか、私がクリニカルローテーションで待ってる時に、確かね、ある先生が、俺、武田信玄の、末裔なんだよ、みたいに言ってて、すごい、みたいな感じの、なんか、会話があったんだけど。だからそういった、なんか先祖がすごい人だと、なんか、周りからすごいと思われるらしいっていう、多分、そういう系だと思う。
That actually does remind me of the Burakunin, which I've talked about them a few times. One of my senpai did a senior thesis on Burakunin, which, do you remember? They're basically like a group of people in Japan who used to work, and maybe even still families that would work and kill like farm animals. So not fish, but farm animals, and blood like from farm animals was considered to be gross and like unhealthy and impure. And so a lot of those families that worked on them were literally tracked. And as far as I know, still to this day, like big companies they have like lists of people's, like whether they're like family names and whether they're associated with working in those districts, and they discriminate on that, which is like a crazy level of discrimination, because it's not even necessarily like, where a lot of other prejudice stems from. Like, hey, you do something that we associate with being bad, like crime or violence, or I don't know, you're taking our jobs. It's literally like you do a job that we like and benefit from, and we don't even think the job in itself is bad, but we think that it's gross. Like just blood is gross. Do you know anything about that, or just like the first time, like when I mentioned that you heard about that, like the Burakunin, and also the Koreans as well. Yeah, maybe if you're interested, you can look into it. But that reminded me of like one ancestors as well. That and obviously the Yamato bloodline. But yeah, thank you for the comment. I really appreciate it. It was very cool. I saw the Taiwanese the video you sent, and my apologies, the Hong Kong video. I just could not understand any Chinese, so I wasn't entirely sure what was going on. And yeah, the next comment. So this is our Japanese comment from I don't know, MA6998. and it was about Okinawa. Do you want to read it?
はい。日本に県が作られたのは1871年です。廃藩置県。ただ、琉球だけは1879年に沖縄県となりました。他の県よりわずか8年遅かっただけです。ちなみにアメリカがハワイ王朝の女王に銃を突きつけ、ハワイを無理やり併合したのは1898年です。沖縄県の誕生の方が早かったわけです。また、日本は沖縄を日本の県にするとき、沖縄の人たちに対して銃を向けるような手荒なことはしませんでした。さらに言えば、アメリカはハワイ王朝を潰した後、ハワイ王朝の人たちをほったらかしにしました。一方、日本の政府は琉球王朝の人たちを日本国の貴族として迎え入れ、それぞれに爵位を与えて生活を保障しました。と。
Thank you for the comment, MA6998. I might have thoughts about this, and the way, in my opinion, so just for clarity, Japan's prefectures were, I don't want to use the word made, and so, but basically saying made in 1871, in 1879 is technically when Okinawa was, officially became one of the prefectures. Therefore, he's saying, oh, so it's only 7 years later. Also, America, when they took over Hawaii, it was more violent, and they didn't, take care of the royalty, or they basically just ignored them. Whereas with Japan, they brought in the royalty into their formal administration. And so he's criticizing America. For clarity, I criticize America too. So I'm not sure if this was being defensive because I was criticizing Okinawa or not, I guess. But what I will say is that I do think this is a little ahistorical in terms of what it seems is trying to be persuaded here, i.e. that the prefectures being established only within 7 years ago somehow makes it seem like Okinawa is a prefecture in the same way that Kyoto or Tokyo is a prefecture. Okinawa was attacked by the Satsuma in Edo in the 1600s. And then it was made a vassal state of Japan for that entire period. So they had to give a bunch of food, or I think it was money and just general provisions. I think food was included as well when I was reading about this because I looked more into it. And the reason that they were made into a vassal state in the first place is because they were already having to give a lot of resources to Japan. And like I said, they were doing trade with China before that. And I do wanted a correction. The vassal state that said relation with China seems to not be true. China had a lot of influence over Okinawa, but it didn't seem like it was to the point where they were an explicit vassal state. But Japan is the one that made them explicitly a vassal state. And that would be for 300 years before Meiji, in which case they, and they did by force take over Okinawa at that point. They did by force take it over. And then after 300 years of occupation, basically, or vassal statehood, then they said, hey, now we're going to give you an option. Come with us. And Okinawa agreed at that point, but it's you're already occupied for so long, they probably saw the cards on the table. So that's something called coercion. It's not something that, and obviously I'm very critical of the U.S. as well, but it'd be like if the U.S. occupied Hawaii for 300 years and then peacefully, allowed the takeover of, or Puerto Rico. That was basically what happened in Puerto Rico. We helped them out during war, if I'm remembering correctly, and then we helped them out more and more and more until we took up so much of their, government. I can't remember if we couped Puerto Rico or not. I'm not specifically there. But then at that point, then it's the people wanted us, or whatever, and then it's peaceful, in retrospect. And so, yeah, I just don't I could look into this more. I was trying to look more into what Ryukyu looked like before Japan influence, but I couldn't find as much information on that. And this would seem like a very historical deep dive. This isn't to say that I'm not critical of the U.S. or nor that the information that you said is technically incorrect. There's a lot of experience I've had with reading Japanese people talk about their history when it's from their perspective very heavily. And it's very clear that it's one of those, the people who write history are writing it in their perspective. And therefore oh no, they were great. I was reading one comment in Japanese that was basically saying no, they the people of modern day Okinawa, they wouldn't want to make a Ryukyu Okoku. Therefore, nothing ever bad happened. It's like, bro, that's like asking Americans if they want to give, America back to the Native Americans and have them take control of everything. It's like, no, like most Americans aren't going to like say, oh yeah, because they've already moved and acclimated to that land. So I don't know. I don't know if you had any thoughts about this or you're like, this is.
でもなんか沖縄の人たちは最初はさ、本当になんか琉球王国のままでしてくださいっていうのをなんかずっと言ってたけど、なんかまあ、by force か、まあ、by force だったのかわかんないけどさ、なんか私が見たやつには、なんか王様をその東京まで連れてって、無理やり、なんかまあサインさせたと。でもその後、なんかちゃんと、王族として、なんかまあ、トリートはしてたらしいけどね。まあ、どこまでがフォースと定義するかっていうのに。
My point was not that it's like a good thing, like not that it's bad to take their royalty on, whatever. My point was this is after 300 years of vassal statehood. Like this wasn't like they walked in and they're just like, oh yeah, we'll bring you in. And there's also something I should mention where it doesn't, if you go to modern Japan, it doesn't seem like the language was respected at all. It's basically virtually gone from Okinawa. Like the only Okinawan I ever heard was like on a bus sometimes. But like, it's not like they... Yeah, but like not children or any other. It doesn't seem like, in not whether or not people are critical or not of the way Quebec or whatever is handled in Canada, where there's like a lot of mandated like half French, half English, like you have to learn both. It doesn't seem like anything like that was taken over to make sure that the youth maintains the language and stuff like that. And given how, I don't know, I'm pretty critical. Like how Meiji forced everybody in Japan to speak the same dialect, just because to me it'd be like if Texas came over and made the United States and then consequently also made Canada, and I don't know, Mexico all speak Texan drawl like English. Like that's kind of what happened in my head in Meiji. And so when I see that the youth doesn't have almost any real connection to Okinawan on like a large scale, and there isn't any effort to be put to that, or like with the Ainu population Hokkaido, I am very critical of how Japan, Imperial Japan handled that, as well as the U.S. So if you think like, I'm going to attack the U.S. to make Joey be like, oh, the U.S. is actually bad too. No, I'm number one critical guy of the U.S. Did you have any other thoughts on this? I know this was more of like a, I don't know, contentious historical discussion. No more thoughts. Any thoughts on Okinawa? We're probably not gonna.
なんか沖縄は本当にいいとこだよね。なんか私も初めて沖縄行ったんだけど、なんかね人がねやっぱりねちょっと東京と比べるのも申し訳ないけど、東京の人って結構冷たいんだよね。なんかまあよく捉えるとしたらなんか他人に構わないみたいな、なんか他人に干渉しない。でもなんか沖縄の人ってなんか結構話しかけてくれたりとか。なんか結構なんか友達みたいな感じだったよね。初めて会った人でも。
Yeah, Okinawa, good times, good history, learned a lot. Not excited to go back to the US, maybe like for like one or two things, but nacho chips are in my mind. Like cheese, I am excited for cheap cheese. But yeah, generally speaking. So new background, and our mic will be being fixed again. So we'll have two mics again. Look forward to that. That bell means we've reached the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us on the lazy conversation towards fluency. If you have any language-related questions and are just looking for general advice, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com and we might respond in the next episode. Also, consider supporting us on Ko-Fi to get video updates, Discord access, and or to just lend a hand. And finally, make sure to check out our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. We'd appreciate the support. This has been Joey.
And Ayami.
Signing off. Jane. Going back to America, I'll be much, much, much more serious about my main channel video that I'm working on. So look forward to that.